Rich man ridicules a waiter, but is shocked when he discovers that the waiter is actually the owner of the restaurant. The grand ballroom sparkled under the soft glow of crystal chandeliers, their light reflecting off polished marble floors. Elegant guests mingled, their laughter a symphony of privilege, but in the midst of it all stood Sterling Hawthorne. Dressed in an immaculate suit, he surveyed the room with disdain in his sharp, calculating gaze. To him, this gala was more than just an event. It was a display of wealth and status. He felt a sense of superiority as he looked down upon those who weren't as fortunate. He leaned back in his chair, sipping a glass of expensive champagne. "Look at them," he muttered under his breath, a smirk playing at the corners of his mouth. "They have no idea what real taste is." His voice was low, but the words dripped with contempt, as if the very air around him was tainted by the presence of the less fortunate. Just then, Elias Becker approached Sterling's table. Clad in the simple black uniform of a waiter, Elias carried a tray carefully balanced on one hand. His dark hair was slightly tousled, and for a moment he hesitated, sensing the tension in the air. Sterling's eyes narrowed as he took in Elias's appearance. "Another one of them," he sneered, raising an eyebrow. "Do you even know what it means to wear a proper suit, or is that too much to ask from a waiter?" The words sliced through Elias, leaving a sting of humiliation. He forced a smile, though inside, he felt his composure begin to crack. "Can I get you anything else?" he asked, his voice steady despite the turmoil within. As Elias waited for a response, the other guests at the table exchanged glances, their silence heavy with unspoken judgment. Some shifted uncomfortably in their seats, while others pretended not to hear. The palpable tension hung in the air like a thick fog, wrapping around Elias and squeezing tighter with each passing second. He took a deep breath, trying to steady the whirlwind of emotions raging inside him. He had always dreamed of being an artist, pouring his heart into each stroke of paint on canvas. But every day, he faced this disdain, this sneering acknowledgement of his station in life. "Just a waiter," he reminded himself, but that didn't diminish the passion that burned within him. "Do you draw those pathetic little sketches in your spare time?" Sterling's voice cut through the haze of Elias's thoughts, a cruel taunt that felt like a slap in the face. "Or do you just serve drinks to those who matter?" Elias clenched his jaw, fighting the urge to respond with anger. Instead, he reminded himself of his art, of late nights spent lost in color and creativity. "I actually paint," he replied, his voice soft but firm, "when I have the time." "Paint? How quaint," Sterling chuckled, the sound sharp and mocking. "I hope you don't expect to make a living off that nonsense." Elias felt heat rise to his cheeks, the humiliation burning bright. Yet, in that moment, a flicker of determination ignited within him. He thought of the canvases in his modest apartment, each one a piece of his soul, waiting for recognition. "I believe one day someone will see my work," he said, a hint of defiance breaking through his shame. Sterling rolled his eyes, dismissing Elias with a wave of his hand. "Good luck with that then," he said, turning his attention back to the other guests, clearly uninterested in the conversation. Elias stepped away from the table, the weight of humiliation heavy on his shoulders. As he walked back into the crowd, he could feel the eyes of the other guests on him. Their quiet judgment was suffocating, but he refused to let it extinguish his dreams. In the depths of his heart, Elias clung to the hope that his passion could one day break through the walls of disdain. He might be a waiter now, but he was also an artist, and that was a truth he would carry with him, even in the face of arrogance. Elias Becker stood in the small, cluttered space of his apartment, surrounded by the scent of paint and turpentine. The walls were adorned with his artwork, vibrant colors and bold strokes that told stories of dreams and struggles. Each piece was a reflection of his spirit, yet in the quiet solitude of his home, he often felt invisible. Late at night, when the world outside was asleep, Elias would sit at his easel, lost in his thoughts. The brush glided across the canvas as he painted, his heart pouring into every stroke. "This is it," he whispered to himself. "This is where I truly belong." But with each passing day, the weight of his aspirations grew heavier. He recalled the long shifts at the restaurant, where the elite dined on extravagant meals, seemingly oblivious to the world outside their bubble. "You're an artist, right?" a wealthy guest had once asked him, smirking. How quaint. The laughter from the table rang in his ears, a reminder of his constant struggle to be seen and respected. Elias remembered the nights he spent balancing work and his art. After waiting tables, he would return home, exhausted but determined. He would mix colors and sketch until dawn, dreaming of the day he would be recognized. "I just need one break," he would tell himself, "one chance to show them what I can do." As he painted, he glanced around his humble apartment. A small table held a few brushes and jars filled with paint. The floor was littered with crumpled sketches, each one a step closer to his dreams. Yet, just outside his window, the lights of the city sparkled, a reminder of the wealth and luxury that felt so far away. "Why can't they see?" he sighed, thinking of people like Sterling Hawthorne. The rich often lived in a different world, one where talent could be overlooked, or worse, dismissed. Elias shook his head and focused on his canvas, letting the colors blend together, each stroke a rebellion against the life he felt trapped in. Then, one evening, while checking his phone between shifts, a notification caught his eye. It was from a local gallery announcing a charity event where artists could exhibit their work. Excitement bubbled inside him. This could be it, he thought, his heart racing. I need to apply. But with the hope came anxiety. The thought of facing the elite crowd filled him with dread. What if they didn't like his work? What if they mocked him again? He took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. "You can do this, Elias," he whispered, forcing a smile. "You're an artist. You deserve to be seen." In the days that followed, Elias worked tirelessly on his submission. He poured his soul into a piece that captured the struggles and beauty of everyday life, hoping it would resonate with others. "This is my voice," he murmured as he painted. "This is who I am." As the submission deadline approached, he felt a mix of hope and fear. What if they choose someone else? He worried, staring at his nearly finished piece. What if I'm not good enough? Yet, deep down, a flicker of determination ignited. This was his chance to break through the walls that had confined him for so long. On the day of the announcement, Elias paced his apartment, glancing at the clock. Minutes felt like hours as he waited for the gallery's email. His heart raced with anticipation. Finally, his phone buzzed. He opened the email with trembling hands. "Congratulations. We are excited to inform you that your artwork has been selected for the charity event." Elias let out a gasp, his heart soaring. "I did it. I'm going to be a part of something bigger." Tears of joy filled his eyes as he realized this moment could change everything. But with the excitement came the fear of facing the elite crowd, especially Sterling. What will he think? Elias pondered, a mix of hope and anxiety swirling within him. He knew this was just the beginning of his journey, and he had to be brave. In that small apartment filled with his dreams, Elias felt a renewed sense of purpose. No longer would he allow others to define him. He was an artist, and soon the world would see him for who he truly was. The charity event unfolded in a grand hall, adorned with flickering candles and elegant floral arrangements. Elias stood nervously beside his artwork, his heart racing as he scanned the crowd. The air was thick with anticipation and fear, and he felt both excited and terrified. Each laugh and whispered compliment from the guests felt like a reminder of how small he was in this world of wealth and power. As he glanced around, Elias recognized a few familiar faces, friends from art school and fellow waiters who had come to support him. Yet, his gaze often drifted toward the more affluent guests, their laughter echoing through the room. It was a world he rarely felt a part of. and he wished he could fade into the background. Suddenly, a chill ran down his spine. He spotted Sterling Hawthorne entering the hall, his presence commanding attention. Elias's heart dropped. He remembered the sting of Sterling's words from their last encounter. Would the man who had belittled him now look upon his work with disdain? To Elias's shock, Sterling's eyes landed on one of his paintings. The vibrant colors and raw emotion in the piece seemed to pull the man closer. Sterling approached with a curious expression, his brow furrowing as he took in the details. Elias felt a mix of dread and hope. Would Sterling recognize the art he once mocked? "Interesting piece," Sterling remarked, crossing his arms. His tone was neutral, but Elias could sense the underlying tension. "I didn't know a waiter could create something like this." Elias felt a flush of anger rise within him, but he forced himself to remain calm. "I'm glad you think it's interesting," he replied, his voice steady. "Art comes from the heart, regardless of one's profession." Sterling looked taken aback by Elias's response. For a moment, the two men stood in silence, the bustling crowd around them fading into the background. Elias felt the weight of their past interaction pressing down on him, and he could see a flicker of vulnerability in Sterling's eyes. "I remember what I said to you," Sterling finally admitted, his voice lower than before. "I was wrong. I let my assumptions cloud my judgment." Elias studied Sterling's face, searching for sincerity. "It's easy to judge someone without knowing their story," he replied, the tension between them palpable. "I've spent years working and studying, trying to be seen for who I am, not just what I do." Sterling nodded slowly, his demeanor shifting. "I've spent my life in a bubble, surrounded by privilege. Sometimes I forget there's more to people than what meets the eye. Your art, it's powerful. It tells a story I never knew existed." Elias felt a mix of surprise and relief. "Thank you," he replied quietly. "Art is all I have. It's my escape from the judgments and expectations of society." "I get that now," Sterling said, his voice filled with a newfound understanding. "I've been so focused on appearances that I lost sight of what really matters. Maybe I should take a step back and reevaluate my life too." Elias couldn't believe what he was hearing. "You're not just a wealthy man," he said, challenging Sterling gently. "You're a person, and it's okay to feel lost sometimes. We all have our struggles." Their conversation deepened, revealing layers of vulnerability neither had expected to share. Sterling spoke about the pressures of his life, the weight of expectations from his family and society. Elias listened intently, realizing they both carried burdens that shaped their identities. "I've always thought I had to be perfect," Sterling confessed, his eyes reflecting a hint of sadness. "But maybe it's time to let go of that illusion." Elias smiled softly, feeling a connection grow between them. "We're all imperfect, Sterling. It's what makes us human. Embracing those imperfections is where true strength lies." As the night continued, Elias and Sterling found solace in their candid dialogue. In that moment, amidst the grandeur of the charity event, two vastly different worlds began to understand each other. The barriers that once divided them started to crumble, revealing the beauty of empathy and shared experiences. After the charity event, the air hung heavy with unspoken thoughts. Sterling Hawthorne sat in his grand office, surrounded by sleek furniture and expensive art pieces. As he stared out of the large window, the city skyline stood tall and proud. Yet inside, a different kind of pride bubbled, a mix of regret and contemplation. "What was I thinking?" he murmured to himself, rubbing his temples. The memory of Elias's artwork, vibrant and full of life, danced in his mind, challenging everything he once believed. Meanwhile, Elias Becker stood in his modest apartment, a small space cluttered with canvases and brushes. The walls bore witness to his dreams, each stroke of paint telling a story that few had bothered to hear. He felt a surge of emotions, a blend of excitement and fear. It was surreal to be recognized, yet the weight of that recognition felt heavy on his shoulders. "What does this mean for me?" he whispered, staring at the painting that had caught Sterling's eye. The colors seemed to shimmer, filled with potential and promise. Both men were caught in a web of transformation, unsure of what lay ahead. As days turned into weeks, Sterling found himself drawn to the idea of mentorship. He had seen something special in Elias, something he had overlooked in his previous arrogance. One afternoon, he decided to seek out the young artist. With a determined stride, he made his way to the restaurant where Elias worked. When Sterling entered, the restaurant buzzed with life. Waiters dashed between tables, carrying plates piled high with gourmet dishes. Sterling spotted Elias, who was wiping down a table, his brow furrowed in concentration. As he approached, the young man looked up, surprise washing over his face. "Sterling!" Elias exclaimed, unsure of how to react. "What brings you here?" Sterling paused, the weight of his intentions settling in his chest. "I wanted to talk to you about your art," he said, a note of sincerity in his voice. "I've been thinking, I'd like to help you." Elias blinked, processing the words. "Help me? With what exactly?" "I want to mentor you," Sterling replied, his tone firm, yet gentle. "You have talent, and I know people in the art world. I can help you get your foot in the door." Elias's heart raced, a mix of disbelief and hope coursed through him. "Are you serious? After the way you treated me at the gala?" "I was wrong," Sterling admitted, his gaze unwavering. "I let my arrogance blind me, but I see now that I missed the point. Your work is incredible, and it deserves recognition." Elias took a step back, still unsure. "Why would you want to help me? What's in it for you?" Sterling sighed, a hint of vulnerability breaking through his polished exterior. "Maybe I want to change. Maybe I want to learn from you too." The silence between them grew thick. Elias felt a flicker of hope, but doubts lingered. "This could change everything," he said slowly. "But what if it doesn't work out?" "Then at least we tried," Sterling replied. "I believe in your art, Elias. Let's take this chance together." Elias studied Sterling's face, searching for any sign of deception. Instead, he found sincerity. "Okay," he finally said, a smile breaking through the uncertainty. "I'll give it a shot." As they shook hands, an unspoken agreement formed between them. Both men stood on the edge of a new chapter, their hearts filled with uncertainty, yet ignited by the promise of growth. The world outside continued its chaotic dance, but within that small restaurant, a bond began to take shape, one that transcended their pasts and opened the door to a shared future. "I'll introduce you to some galleries next week," Sterling said, excitement lacing his voice, "and we can work on your portfolio together." Elias nodded, his mind racing with possibilities. "I can't believe this is happening," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Thank you, Sterling." "Let's just see where this leads," Sterling replied, a smile creeping onto his face. For the first time in a long time, both men felt a glimmer of hope, a chance for redemption that could change their lives forever. Elias Becker stood in front of his easel, paintbrush in hand, feeling a rush of excitement. His career as an artist was starting to take off. With Sterling Hawthorne's support, he was gaining attention in the art world. It felt surreal to see his name on gallery invitations and to receive calls from curators interested in his work. "Can you believe this?" Elias said to himself, a smile spreading across his face as he mixed vibrant colors on his palette. He thought back to the days when he felt invisible, working long hours as a waiter while dreaming of being recognized for his art. Now, he was finally making progress, and it filled him with hope. Meanwhile, Sterling was also on a journey of self-discovery. He sat in his luxurious office, surrounded by polished wood and expensive decorations. But despite the opulence, a sense of emptiness lingered within him. He often thought about his past behavior and how he had treated Elias. The memories haunted him, pushing him to confront the superficiality of his life. "Why did I let myself get caught up in that world?" Sterling muttered to himself, staring out the window at the bustling city below. "There has to be more to life than wealth and status." As the weeks passed, the bond between Elias and Sterling grew stronger. They began to meet regularly, not just for art-related matters, but also to share their thoughts and feelings. It was during one of these meetings that they decided to collaborate on a community art project. "I think it would be amazing to create something that brings people together," Elias suggested, his eyes shining with enthusiasm. "Art can break down barriers, and I want to show that." Sterling nodded, inspired by Elias's passion. "You're right. We can invite people from different backgrounds to join us. Let's create a mural that represents our community." Elias's heart raced at the idea. That would be incredible. We could have workshops and let everyone contribute their piece to the mural. They spent days planning the project, reaching out to community centers and schools. The response was overwhelming. People from various walks of life signed up to participate, eager to express themselves through art. On the day of the mural painting, the sun shone brightly, and the atmosphere buzzed with excitement. Families, children, and individuals filled the park where the mural would take shape. Elias and Sterling stood side by side, directing the crowd. "Let's start with a base color," Elias called out, guiding a group of eager children. "Everyone can add their own splash of color." As they painted, Elias felt a warmth in his heart. He watched as people from different backgrounds laughed and shared stories. Sterling, too, noticed how the event was breaking down barriers. He spoke with participants, listening to their stories and learning about their lives. "This is amazing," Sterling said to Elias, his voice filled with genuine awe. "I never realized how much art could connect people." Elias smiled, feeling the weight of his past lift just a little. Art has a way of opening hearts. It allows us to see beyond labels and judgments. As the mural started to take shape, it became a vibrant representation of the community, colors blending together, each stroke telling a story. Elias and Sterling shared moments of vulnerability, talking about their dreams and fears. Each conversation peeled away layers of prejudice and misunderstanding. "I used to think success was all about money and status," Sterling admitted one afternoon, paint smudged on his cheek. "But now, I see it's about connection and understanding." Elias nodded, his own experiences echoing in Sterling's words. "For me, it's about being seen for who I truly am, not just a waiter or an artist." Days turned into weeks, and the mural was finally complete. The unveiling ceremony was a celebration of their journey, drawing people from all walks of life. As they stood together, surrounded by smiling faces and colorful art, both men felt a profound sense of achievement. "Look at what we've created," Elias said, his voice filled with emotion. "It's more than just a mural, it's a testament to our journey." Sterling smiled, feeling a warmth in his chest. "And it shows that friendship can bridge any gap." In that moment, they both understood that true growth came from embracing their differences and learning from one another. Their friendship had transformed them, allowing them to see the world through each other's eyes. Together, they had created something beautiful, not just in art, but in their lives. The day of the final exhibition dawned bright and clear. Elias Becker stood before his artwork, a mix of excitement and nerves swirling within him. The gallery was filled with people, a vibrant mix of guests from different walks of life. Elegant dresses and tailored suits mingled with casual attire, creating an atmosphere of unity. Elias took a deep breath, reminding himself of how far he had come. He remembered the nights spent painting in his small apartment, the countless hours of dedication, and the moments of doubt. Now, standing in front of a crowd, he felt both pride and vulnerability. "I can't believe this is happening," he whispered to himself, a smile creeping onto his face. As he scanned the room, his eyes landed on Sterling Hawthorne. Dressed in a sharp suit, Sterling moved with an air of confidence that once intimidated Elias. But now, after their journey together, Elias felt different. He felt stronger. Sterling caught Elias's gaze and nodded, a silent acknowledgement of the bond they had formed. "Are you ready?" Sterling asked, stepping closer. His voice was warm, lacking the edge it once had. Elias nodded, his heart racing. I think so. I just hope people like my work. They will. You have a gift, Elias. Just remember to enjoy this moment, Sterling replied, placing a reassuring hand on Elias's shoulder. As the guests began to mingle and admire the artwork, the atmosphere shifted. Laughter filled the air, and the walls vibrated with conversations about art, life, and dreams. Elias watched as people gathered around his pieces, their expressions ranging from curiosity to awe. Then, in a moment that seemed to freeze time, Sterling stepped onto a small platform. He cleared his throat, and the room quieted. Elias felt a mix of anticipation and anxiety. What would Sterling say? Ladies and gentlemen, Sterling began, his voice steady but filled with emotion. I want to take a moment to acknowledge someone very special tonight, Elias Becker. Elias's heart raced. He felt the eyes of the crowd upon him, a wave of warmth washing over him. I met Elias in a very different place, Sterling continued. I was arrogant and dismissive. I judged him based on his job, not seeing the brilliant artist standing before me. Elias has shown me that true talent can come from anywhere, and that it is our connections that define us, not our social status. The audience listened intently, and Elias felt a tear prick at the corner of his eye. Sterling's words were a balm for the wounds of the past. Sterling took a deep breath, his gaze softening. I owe Elias an apology. I was wrong to judge him, and I am sorry for the hurt I caused. We all have our struggles, and it is time we recognize that we share more in common than we think. A ripple of applause erupted in the gallery, and Elias felt a surge of gratitude. He met Sterling's eyes, and in that moment, they understood each other completely. Thank you, Elias said softly when Sterling stepped down. That means a lot to me. Just speaking the truth, Sterling replied, a hint of a smile on his face. As the evening unfolded, guests from both their worlds mingled and shared stories. The walls that had once divided them began to crumble. Elias watched as people discussed his artwork, and he felt a deep sense of belonging. Later, as the night began to wind down, Elias found a quiet corner of the gallery. He looked around at the faces illuminated by the soft lights, each one telling a story of connection and acceptance. Look how far we've come, Sterling said, joining him. I never thought I would find myself here, celebrating art instead of wealth. Elias smiled, overwhelmed by the moment. I used to think success was about money and fame. Now, I see it's about the people we meet and the relationships we build. Exactly, Sterling replied. True wealth is found in our connections, the lessons we learn, and the support we give each other. As they stood together, reflecting on their journey, both men understood that their lives had forever changed. This exhibition was not just a celebration of Elias's art, but a testament to their friendship and growth. Together, they had broken down barriers and discovered the richness of human connection, a treasure far greater than any material possession. Share this story if you believe that true connections can transform our lives and break down barriers. Leave a comment about a moment when art or friendship inspired you, and subscribe for more inspiring stories like this one.